Good morning, everyone. It is the public premium video forecast discussion for Friday, January 17th, 2025. Now, the last time we did a premium public video, last Friday, I discussed how while we had some misses, the pattern that is evolving is such that we're going to get a little bit more active around here in terms of snow potential. And of course, as you would have it, today we're talking about one of those snow potentials setting up for the region. Now, this is going to be a bit of a complicated forecast. We're going to break down all the features here. I've been detailing this for quite some time, really since about Monday, on this potential snowfall threat, thinking of it as a moderate snowfall threat, especially for the I-95 corridor and really around northeastern New Jersey, central New Jersey, New York City Metro. But it looks like it's going to be a little bit more expansive than that. And I'm going to explain why and what we're watching for, and probably what we're going to see on the radar as this whole thing evolves. So let's take a look at the data and dive in, shall we? First, our current observations. Right now, we have a modified polar air mass in here. Okay, we had a warm front lift through, produced a little bit of light snow last night, dusting here and there, nothing too significant. Temperatures range from the mid 20s over the northern interior, upper 20s to lower 30s along the coast, with a westerly wind that sometimes shifts to the southwest or northwest, depending on microscale factors here. But you get the idea here, around 5 miles per hour, not anything too significant. It's pretty quiet right now. And really, it's going to be quiet for much of today. As you can see on our WeatherTap radar and surface map, a warm front's passing to our north. There's a chance for a few flurries here and there, especially around the Poconos and Catskills, but nothing really significant going on. The pattern, though, is setting to change. Let's take a look at satellite pictures. First, the infrared satellite picture. Right now, we are currently having a separation between the polar and subtropical jet streams, right? We've been dealing with that for quite some time. Thus, a lot of suppressed storms. If you're in northern New Jersey, you've been snow-starved. Southern New Jersey, you've had a nice bounty, more than what you normally expect, especially around Cape May. And that's because your subtropical jet stream keeps on getting suppressed down towards the southern Mid-Atlantic and southeast. But that is starting to change, and you can see that change starting to take shape right back here. Notice the trough here. Notice the increasing cloud temperatures here, the cold cloud temperatures, the increasing cloud heights, excuse me. And you can see the start of our Arctic air mass. Let's zoom out and take a look at the water vapor satellite picture and get a good view of this weather pattern. And on the water vapor satellite picture, first thing in the Atlantic, this feature that has been sitting over the Canadian Maritimes is now around 50 north, 50 west, pretty much where you want it if you're looking for a snowfall threat. You have another short wave that is passing to the south of it that's going to further enhance that. So you got a very weak, semi-negative NAO type pattern here setting up in the Atlantic Ocean. Right now, we have a shortwave ridge that's passing over us, and that's what's going to set up a very nice day for us around the region. But here comes the change, right? And you can start to see that broad trough starting to push south, and you start to see a little bit better alignment between the polar and subtropical jet streams. And boy, is this subtropical jet stream loaded with moisture. So when we take a look at the upper level winds here, at 250 millibars, and let me see if I can close this out real fast, but that doesn't matter. Here's your polar jet stream, and you see this ridge spiking. You see how that ridge spikes into Alaska? That sets the evolution of this trough expanding and driving southward. And finally, we get an alignment here with the subtropical jet stream right here. So these two start to come in alignment, and what that does is that it starts to set up a southwesterly wind pattern in the upper level atmosphere, let's say 500 millibars, 250 millibars, from the Gulf of Mexico up the East Coast. And your trough axis sets up here rather than here. And so what that allows for is for low pressure systems to interact with Arctic air and moisture. And that leads to snowfall potential. So we've been talking about this potential for quite some time. So when we take a look at what's potential here, take a look at the type of air mass we have up here. Pure Arctic air getting ready to drop southward. We're not talking about, highs in the upper 20s. We're talking about highs in the single digits and teens. That type of air mass. That is what's heading our way via this transport. You can see the wind transport right from the Arctic Circle right into the northern plains and heading right towards our neck of the woods as this Arctic front approaches. So we have an understanding of what type of air mass source, and understand this type of air mass is not one that is going to be bullied. That's not going to be overwhelmed by warm air. It is going to be a very tough air mass to drive out. And it is also going to be one that when it comes in almost like molasses. It just rolls right in, first at the surface and then up towards the mid levels. And that is going to be a factor when we're studying the potential for snowfall and the potential for some mesoscale banding within this snowstorm. So now we have an understanding of what our air mass is, not on model guidance, but in actual observations. So now we have that all set up. So what is the difference in model guidance? Because we're starting to get a better idea of what's evolving here, but what is actually driving some of the different details here? Okay, so first we have to understand the upper level winds, and you can see in the upper level winds that change. Now we're 48 hours out from the change. Here we are right now. This is this afternoon. Again, suppression. This can't move up the coast, right? You can't have any moisture transport in this type of setup, right? Even go to 0Z last night. Obviously, northwesterly flow over us. Any type of moisture, any type of low pressure system in the subtropical jet stream ends up out here, right? 48 hours from now, boom, that change. This is what changes. This is what's important. Now you get the subtropical jet stream involved, and it interacts with the polar jet stream. So 66 hours out. This is on Sunday afternoon. This is by the time we start seeing our winter storm potential start to evolve. We have interaction and phasing between the polar and subtropical jet streams. It's no longer separated. It's no longer one missing the other. We now have full interaction, and because of that interaction, you enhance the jet stream, you enhance the winds in the upper levels. And when you see this type of setup, it enhances what we call cyclogenesis. So if we zoom in here, you see this little spreading that's taking place here. This helps air rapidly rising. So this supports your potential for a moderate precipitation event. But also, let's zoom out here for a second. Notice we don't have the strongest block. So what this tells me is that this is not a slow moving system. This is going to be moving at a pretty good rate. So you want to be careful in jumping the gun on snowfall totals, because you're going to have this system moving pretty quickly. And sometimes model guidance holds back the end of a precipitation event a little bit too long than reality. So you kind of want to put that in the back of your mind. So that is our upper level wind setup here. And by the way, this remains in place in terms of the potential for that interaction over the next 15 days. Now, I beg you not to get too wrapped up in future storm potentials beyond Sunday, because we need to figure out what happens with this storm in terms of the thermal gradient before we start handling other storms. So have a little patience. Let's just focus on Sunday. And then, yes, there's more potential out there, definitely, but let's wait a little bit before we start diving into on that. Now, the difference in the model guidance. Now, this is the European 06Z and 0Z. Okay, what is the difference? You might have a difficult time seeing the difference. And we did this with the premium members and premium video discussion yesterday. It's very, very small. Can you see the slight enhancement? Just very, very slight in terms of the strength of this short wave coming in. That is the primary difference in this forecast. How strong does the low pressure system get to interact with the thermal gradient and the gradient and the isotropic lifting involved here that drives this whole precipitation event? So if this is just a tad bit stronger, you end up with a tad bit stronger low pressure system. And one of the tools I've been using and playing with is actually the European AI guidance, which has been pretty consistent in keeping this disturbance stronger and has been producing a robust precipitation shield that I've definitely been keeping an eye on. And the reason why I've been really liking this solution is because it makes the most sense. You have an Arctic boundary interacting with a short wave with plenty of deep moisture right off the coast. You don't need a huge amount of moisture to be transported because your temperatures are free falling and your snow ratios are rising rapidly. So, what would typically be a minor, let's say 1 to 3 inch type snowfall with 3/10 of an inch of precipitation becomes more of a 5 inch snowfall because your snow ratios are rapidly rising while this is happening because your Arctic air is building in. So, this is very impressive. And when we take a look at the moisture potential here, again, you can see the difference here in how this is evolving here. You can see basically we're going to be in a range between 0.4 and 0.7. Okay, some model guidance is a little bit higher because it introduces a little bit warmer air, but you get the overall theme here. Enough moisture to make things interesting, to push that snowfall ratio up to maximize that snowfall ratio potential. So what's all driving this is the thermal gradient that's coming in. Now, we have a rule in meteorology that the heaviest snowfall typically sets up between the -6 and -8 degrees Celsius area. Now, in most storms, you have a steady environment where, okay, it locks in, and this is where you got your heaviest snowfall, and that's it. Yeah, sure, you might get a little bit colder on the coastal plain, rain snow mix, whatever. But in this scenario, this line moves. So when we study this, and this is the 06Z guidance that just came in, it's very progressive and drops southward as the storm evolves. Okay. The timing on here is wrong, but if you compare it, okay, this is Sunday afternoon. This is Sunday evening. Notice, look at that drop. See how it's progressing towards the coast? While we get steadily colder, talking about -10, -12. So you can see as the precipitation is evolving here in the evening, now your rain, now that range is around the New York City metro, around the I-95 corridor, pushing into central New Jersey, and it continues to decline and head towards the coastal waters. So what this is going to look like on the radar is just this moderate to heavy band of snow within that -6 to -8 degrees Celsius range, pushing towards the coast and enhancing snowfall. All while that's happening, your snow ratios are going to be steadily rising. At the surface, you could also see this very clearly. Now, the boundary layers start off ahead of this event basically in the mid 30s on the I-95 corridor, mid to upper 30s on the immediate coast, and you can see the Arctic air over the interior. So as this storm is evolving, your temperatures just begin to crash through the 20s and towards the teens as this snowfall is evolving. So what do we know with this? Well, we know that initially you might get a little bit of rain to start, especially in southern New Jersey, as this precipitation starts. Everything changes over to snow, but the cooling of the boundary layer means that your snow ratio progression is going to be a little bit slower on the immediate coast and much faster over the interior. But it's not going to be constant. So you can't just say, okay, there's 4 inches of QPF, therefore multiply by 15. There's your snowfall forecast. Instead, you have to look at this hour by hour. So let me just show you some of the solutions. This is the 06Z guidance. Notice nice, robust, moderate snowfall, maybe a few heavy bursts here and there within the precipitation shield. But also notice this is moving fast. It doesn't stick around all day. By midnight, this is pretty much done, okay? So you want to be careful in jumping the gun on how much snowfall is actually possible here. This is the European AI version, and you look at this and you might say, hey, look, that's over a half an inch of QPF here. Yes, but be careful because all of this isn't the same snow ratio. So if you try to multiply this by 20 or 15, you might be a little bit too high. Because that's how some people are talking about, maybe seeing 10 inches out of this. You want to be careful because your snow ratio is going to be progressing upward. It's not steady. So you kind of have to take each hour and then look at the QPF output and then start working on, okay, where do you think the snow ratio will be for each hour? Meanwhile, the GFS is pretty much producing the same thing. Again, there's that warm air factor. But notice the low here, okay, on all of these is relatively weak. Okay, we go from 1002 to 995 on the European, going 104 to 997. So we are seeing intensification. And then you got the Canadian, which is down to 994 and then goes to 988. Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on the Canadian. I know a lot of people, especially in northern New Jersey and in the Poconos, are certainly keeping an eye on it. That looks way too strong. Okay, and it's way amplified, and that's typical of the Canadian guidance, which is why I typically don't use it because it tends to produce an unrealistic cyclogenesis result, especially with the low pressure system. If you get a low pressure system this strong, which really doesn't fit into the overall pattern, then yeah, you slow down the cold air transport and you set up this warm area where you're in the upper 30s. But I don't see this being supported in any of the other guidance. I don't think this is a realistic solution. And again, we're dealing with pure Arctic air here. So pure Arctic air is not going to be held back very easily. So if anything, if I saw this type of solution, I'd be worried about ice in this setup, especially in the lower levels of the atmosphere. So I kind of threw that out. So this is what I'm generally thinking in this forecast. We'll start from south to north, down to the south. I'm looking at right now 1 to 3 inch snowfall going from rain to snow. Premium consultant members, you have access to this map. You can zoom in on it. And further north, this is where I got my 2 to 5 inch range where we have our snow, but it's not in the area of the best dynamics. Okay, so you got a nice steady snowfall. And by the way, this snowfall is going to be very dry. So that's a factor as well. It's a dry, fluffy type snow. Then in my area where I'm looking for the best dynamics all to come together, that's where I'm looking at 4 to 8 inches of snow setting up here. You got the Philadelphia metro, Lancaster, Allentown, Princeton, Central New Jersey, like Freehold, northeastern, all of northern New Jersey, really, and much of southeastern New York, even Long Island. You might start off a little bit of rain at the very start in the east end of Long Island. Let's see how the data works out, but I think the temperatures will be falling below freezing or towards freezing, let's say about 34 in snow, before the steady precipitation gets to you out on the eastern end of Long Island, because that cold air is just going to be bleeding in and taking hold, and then that extends. Notice, again, 4 to 8 inches is my max. Two reasons. One, the snow ratio isn't steady. It continues to rise through the storm. So your highest snow ratios are going to be when your precipitation's leaving. And two, this is a fast moving storm. So you want to be really careful on trying to put out too much snowfall potential, like a 10-inch snowfall forecast, because you're really limited on time and you're kind of racing between the dry Arctic air coming in and the moisture that's in place on the coastal plain. So typically that leads to a little bit quicker cutoff. So I think a 4 to 8 inch range is a pretty good, reasonable range in this setup. And again, as we go through the day today, we have 12Z guidance coming out, and we will put out public maps once we see that 12Z guidance, where we're going to have the potential to enhance this forecast, get a little bit better detail with the mesoscale data. So with that, let's dive into the rest of this forecast, which is going to be bone-chilling cold. For today, sky or cloud cover, high temperatures in the lower to mid 30s over the northern interior, upper 30s to lower 40s along the coast. Tonight into tomorrow, our first cold front approaches with increasing clouds. Look for low temperatures in the mid to upper 20s over the northern interior, upper 20s to lower 30s in your suburbs, and lower to mid 30s in your urban areas. For tomorrow, the cold front moves through, the first one, with rain and snow showers around the region. Nothing too heavy, just more of a nuisance than anything else. Look for high temperatures ranging from the mid to upper 30s over the northern interior, lower to mid 40s along the coast. Now on Sunday morning, it's quiet. Cloudy, but quiet. Low temperatures will range from the mid to upper teens over the northern interior, upper teens to lower 20s in your suburbs, mid 20s to lower 30s along the coast. Then Sunday afternoon, snow begins to develop. As the snow starts to develop, it will start to become heavier to moderate. If you're going to the Eagles game, because they got a playoff game, the NFC divisional game, it's going to be rather snowy there. That is for sure. So definitely bundle up for that. Snow will become widespread, become steady. After 2 o'clock, we should start to see a rapid expansion. By the time we get to 4 or 5 o'clock, everyone will be seeing snow, steady snow around the 6 to 8 p.m. time period. Temperatures initially will range from the lower to mid 20s over the northern interior, upper 20s to lower 30s in the Delaware River Valley, mid to upper 30s along the coast. Those temperatures will then crash as we move on through the evening, through the 20s and towards the teens. The snowfall will exit after midnight, and by Monday morning, brutally cold air will be in place. We're talking about low temperatures below zero over the northern interior, lower to mid-teens on the coast. Temperatures don't rise much after that on Monday, with high temperatures ranging from the mid to upper teens over the northern interior, upper teens to lower 20s along the coast. So you get an idea of just how brutal and strong this Arctic air mass is that is going to be pushing up against all this moisture transport, which is why you don't want to have a low pressure system on the coast in this scenario, because it doesn't make sense, right? So that's why another reason to throw out the Canadian. Now, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, scattered cloud cover, a few flurries, brutally cold, looking at low temperatures in the single digits to teens below zero over the interior and single digits along the coast. High temperatures in the single digits over the interior and lower to mid teens along the coast. If you are outside during this time period, please bundle up. Frostbite and other cold illnesses is serious, serious concern. Okay. On Friday, we warm up a little bit more. High pressure will be in control, but will be moving off the coast. Look for low temperatures to range from the single digits over the interior, lower to mid teens along the coast. High temperatures will range from the mid to upper 20s over the mid 20s over the interior, upper 20s to lower 30s along the coast. During this time period, you might have noticed some moisture off the coast here. We are watching the potential for some sort of low pressure system, and there's a question just how far north it gets. And again, you can see as we go towards next weekend, hey, we got more trouble to look at. But again, details are very, very questionable. So don't jump the gun on that just yet. But there is a lot going on. So moving forward, the plan here is that we will have a public map out this afternoon once I get a better idea on some of the mesoscale data that is coming out. Kind of want to give it 2 runs on the NAM, which is what we're doing. And same thing with the HRR. We'll fine tune as we get more of that data that's a little bit more reliable. And then, of course, we'll have updates tomorrow and a very active day on Sunday. Looks like I'm going to have to hit the gym around 5 a.m. on Sunday. Yeah. Anyway, that is your forecast discussion for today. Have a wonderful day. And as always, stay safe out there.